When all is said and done, what will you say? Will you say that you shifted expectations, or the ground shifted beneath your feet?
All right, thank you so much for joining us. A bit of housekeeping. Please feel free to message down in the chat box and the chat section. Click on the bottom of the screen. Feel free to post any questions that you have. Thank you so much to those of you who have sent in questions. We really appreciate it, and we have tried to include them in our questions to our panelists today. Our purpose behind the panelcast is to shift mindsets for a positive change, specifically within the sports, entertainment and events industry. It's fair to say that everyone's had a tough few months, and the announcement of the recession yesterday probably wasn't a shock to a lot of people, but it was a really sad reality that this is probably going to go on for a little bit longer. What I have personally loved seeing over the last 6 months is the tenacity of our industry and how amazingly resilient all of our peers are. And I have loved actually connecting with people more, and that we've been able to slow down and talk and support each other. And it is a really, really supportive industry. Obviously, we couldn't bring every person on board who's done extraordinary things to kick our industry off and to kick live events off, but we thought we could at least bring you a couple to explore examples that have sparked reinvention and innovation. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Simon Barratt, who is the Director of Marketing and Products for Three Crowns Media. Hi, Simon.
Thanks,
and Andrew Stone, Managing Director of EPS Australia. Hi. And last time I forgot to introduce him, so I'm going to make a big fanfare. CT is the MD of The-Shift and also my trusty business partner. Hello, CT.
G'day. Let's be honest, who doesn't know him?
I'll pay you for that later.
Thanks, mate. We need the money.
So all three have a magnitude of experience in the world of marketing and events and communications, and that's something we're going to discuss today. They've also been an integral part of seeing live events reinvented in our beautifully new complex world. So welcome to episode 10 of the Shift Panelcast, Reinventing Events and Growth Marketing Assets. I am going to kick off with the normal icebreaker. Simon, you first. What has been your favourite event of all time?
Well, I think anyone who works in events would agree with me that the best event you ever go to is the one that you're not running. And I've been pretty lucky in my career to have been to some amazing events, some of which are run by the panelists here. But I think for me, Formula One stands out as the best event that I've ever witnessed or been a part of. Just the level of excitement that you get from being on a Formula One track. And I've been to some crackers, but just being able to experience that, without having to work my ass off as much as what you guys had to, I think was probably the most enjoyable events that I've been to. I think one in particular was when we're at Red Bull and the Red Bull team actually won the race in Melbourne. I've got memories from that hospitality suite that will stay with me forever.
How do you have memories of that?
Yeah. I think that for sure was an absolute highlight. Formula One is just next level to me. Like, to have that level of event and then just have what they're doing in their cars, and the competitiveness of the racing at that level is the peak. So probably Formula One in Melbourne. I can't even remember the year. You guys will probably know. It was the year that we won. The first one. 2011, I think it was.
I was extremely scared about that marquee.
Yeah. Yeah, we almost destroyed the scaffold, I'm sure. So yeah, I think that was probably the best, probably the best event that I've been a part of in my career.
Awesome, thank you. Oh, Andrew, your sound looks like it's off. Did you mute yourself?
I didn't think so. How's that?
Hello,
What's
yeah,
up?
you're back.
No, I said, was that the facility inside pit entry?
It was.
I remember that one. I remember that. Great time.
Yeah, there's been a few of those. And what about yourself, Andrew? Because you've been in motorsport for quite a few years, but back in the early start of your career. But what's been your favourite event of all time?
Look, I'll echo Simon's thoughts there. In a couple of instances, Formula One definitely right up there. The best events are the ones you don't run. So as not to sound like a copycat, I'm actually going to go with spring racing. That spring racing week and what those guys churned through there 4 days in the space of a week and put through, I think the first time I went down there, as a matter of fact, was the year they hit 132,000 and the police came in the next year and said, right, we're capping it. The tram shut down and everything shut down. And even as an event manager watching the anarchy that unfolded, it was just exemplary. Look, from a working perspective, Bathurst, 6 years the event manager up there. CT, I can see you nodding your head, mate. You know it.
I think I described it as Mad Max or something like that last panelcast.
There's a story about someone getting stuck up on the top of the mountain in a car at 5 p.m. on a Saturday, but we'll save that. Look, that's a 4-day motor race, but it's a 10-day. There's a look at him shaking his head.
I wouldn't be anywhere near there at 5 p.m.
Under instructions. It's a 4-day race, but a 10-day event that runs 24 hours a day. And as an event manager, literally blood, sweat and tears that go into that event on what used to be a shoestring back in those days, and it's really stepped up its game now. But you're essentially running a small city, with 25,000 campers on site for 10 days. If you think it's a car race, you're mistaken. It's just a place that has making my hair stand up now. Love it.
Yeah, actually, I was saying, Stoney, last time I was saying in the early days when we used to go there, there'd be people camped there for 3 to 4 weeks beforehand.
Leading into it, yeah.
Take their whole annual leave to go and sit on top of the mountain.
The campground gate, the street boundary road leading into that would have just cars dotted all the way along that they just set up and camped on the side of the road waiting for the gates to open. Hardcore fans and guys who are used to wearing suits and ties during the week, and accountants that just let their inner child out for 10 days.
Awesome.
Well, look, I know I've touched on quite a few. I guess we're at episode 10 now. I'm going to touch on one because we've just seen in the last day we've seen an announcement from Vodafone that they're back into cricket, and we were lucky enough in the 2010 to 2013 period to spend 4 years with Vodafone running their cricket campaign, and they gave us I guess a little bit of leeway to come up with some really funny campaigns like the Dunker Pom, watermelon helmets, how's that duck shoot carnivals and different things, and activate that around Australia. And over the 4 years, we had a reach of over 2 million spectators there. So it was a really big campaign, and it was really exciting to see that pop up as an announcement yesterday. So great to have them back into cricket.
Fab, shall we get down to the serious stuff now? Simon, can you just give us a little about yourself, your position and your organisation?
Yeah, so we own a company's called Three Crowns Media Group. We're based up in Avalon on Sydney's northern beaches. You'd probably know we used to own Coastal Watch, Surfing World. Historically, it's a big print and digital media house. In the last few years, we've really divested out of media, and especially print media, and focused more on how we kind of work with our audience in different ways. We've gone pretty hard into events, and the brand that's really stood the test of time there is a brand called Transmoto, which was a print magazine, Australia's largest digital audience for off-road motorbikes, and we've really converted that into a pretty successful events business, and we run now 8 pretty large amateur enduro motocross events on the East Coast, nothing on the West Coast yet. And we have about 4,500 to 5,000 participants across that event base now. And kind of one big event a month. We run from March through to October. We generally give a bit of a rest in summer. A lot of our events have camping elements, so just the heat and the fire danger and the fact that no one likes riding around their motorbike sucking in dust in 40-degree heat. So yeah, we've got it's a really large kind of media base of motorbike enthusiasts, mostly off-road, and we've managed to convert it into a really successful little events business. And up until this year, things were going great. We've had awesome participation increases. We've got events selling out in less than a minute. we got a great base of awesome partners, both from the endemic two-wheel scene and some non-endemic partners that have come on to support it. And yeah, we just found a bit of a niche in the whole moto market where we create this fun, not a whole lot of rules, race your mates, camp out for the weekend. A lot of the places we look for, we aim for places that don't have mobile phone reception. So you can literally switch your phone off on Friday and pick it up again on Monday morning and have a weekend with the boys or a weekend with your family where you can just focus on riding motorbikes. So I'm running the business there at the moment. I've got a great team, event managers, brand managers, and a huge contractor base that kind of pull it all together. And up until March, we were going great guns, but things have hit the skids this year. And I'm sure we'll touch on what we've done to evolve in the year that's 2020.
Yeah, we definitely will. Now, when we spoke last week, you talked to us about, because we were talking about the progression, I suppose, from print media, because your company has gone from a print media agency and developed over the last 10 years, which had to happen to that industry. And data is something that really is quite core to your organization. And that data is your community. You just mentioned there's like 4,500 of them. How do you traditionally engage them?
We're pretty lucky in a way, because before we got into events, we, and Andy Wigan and Jared Duffy, the guys that I work with, have been in creating really awesome moto content for 20 years, and the way that we engage with our community is through delivering them really awesome moto content, whether that's places to go ride your bike, or bike comparisons, or project bikes, or whatever it is. Like we've built this community of people that tune into our channels just to learn, and it's like their interest base, so we feed them content, and we're coming from a media background. Historically our partners spend with us on advertising, so we got this big audience, and then we just shifted it, and there's still an advertising stream within our business, but we were able to shift that audience into properties that we own, and that was events, and we also own products, and creating properties that we own really kind of changed us from being so reliant on an advertising model, and we were able to identify what our audience wants really easily, because we're just constantly communicating with them, and create an event platform that we know that they would like and enjoy, and then just continuous feedback. Like for a off-road community, we're constantly sending, hey, tell us what you thought about that. What did you like? What didn't you like? Like, what did you like about that track? Would you come back? Like, we're constantly seeking feedback and data from them, and we've been able to collate that, quite extensive data over the last 5 years, and then also be able to feed that back to our partners and go, hey, look, you think you're the most popular tyre brand, but actually in Queensland you're number 3 if you look at the data set from this event that we just run. So, I think you might not think it's the most educated audience, because these guys are really blue collar dudes. They're not tech guys, but they love having a say, and they love being a part on what we've been able to create and evolve.
It's so passionate.
Really passionate, and we listen to them. If they say, oh, that track was shit, then we don't go back to that track. It's too hard, then no one enjoyed it, then what's the point of running it? So we really listen to what the guys say. Like we always something I picked up at my time at Red Bull and Haley, and Chris, you would know this, and maybe a lot of people get it wrong. They putting the participant first, and saying like why did they have a good experience? It's not about you and your brand and how well you did or how well you executed. It's what the participant drove out of the gate feeling, and if they're feeling like, fuck, that was awesome, I'm definitely going to come back, then we've done a good job. And we've definitely had events that have just not gone so well, and people are going, oh, the track was too hard. I'm still having nightmares. I couldn't get up that hill. What a waste of money. And we can adjust it for the next event, or we can move it and try and find a new location where, it suits the average punter. That's the thing. It's the worst guy on the track can get around and have a good day, then we've put on a successful event.
I think something that we were super impressed with, when we spoke to you last week on the transformation and showing the innovation from the print media industry to a media agency to essentially what you guys have built and what we've been talking about for the last 6 months of a growth marketing asset. You've got all of this data, and you've got a community, and you've got advertising, and you've got an event at the core, and you've built a whole community around all of these different assets and brought them together. And we were like, when you were explaining it to us, we're like, they've got one, they've got that, they've transformed their business and innovated, and that was probably needed to innovate from print, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think in our industry, we're all going to start getting pushed now to innovate and to change the way that we market.
Yeah.
Not necessarily have this 360-degree marketing strategy, but it's more around using what's already in your existing business. And we could educate brands around that as well. I was like blown away when you were explaining the business model that you guys.
I've only been with the business for 3 years, and there's people that have been there. Andy and Robbie, our event manager, and Jared have been there longer than me, and they probably didn't really know the asset that they had. Like they were doing events as a marketing initiative to promote the Transmoto brand to sell more advertising. And I think when I came in, I was like, hang on, that event sold out in how much? 2 minutes? And we didn't really make any money on the event, which is not a bad thing, but it sold out in 2 minutes. Like that's a great asset.
Merch, well, don't you?
Yeah, well, the merch is merch has been good in COVID. This kept a few bucks coming in when we can't run events. But
the thing is to have all of these different elements to it, so that when something does come and shut down one element, you can activate another one, and it's not too damaging to the. I mean, it's obviously this has been devastating to every business that involves events, but it can kind of cushion the blow.
Yeah, it can find a way to break even, I think is the challenge at the moment. But look, it just needed some focus and to be scaled and to identify events as the path forward, because anyone who's worked in print media or even in digital media knows how fragile it is and how quickly it can change. And a brand that's your biggest client one day has a change and they have a bad quarter, and all of a sudden a huge chunk of your revenue gets cut off. So I think it was about empowering our business to be less reliant on advertising dollars and brand money, and being utilizing our asset, which is our audience, which is our community, and putting something on for them that they felt was really good value for money, that they were happy to invest in, but they also got to take away a great experience. And like we're still on the journey. Like we haven't solved it yet. Like we've had some great scale and some great growth, and this year's a speed bump that I think we'll just forget in the future.
Talking of that journey, because a lot of our viewers are here to understand what it is, how you have got through the last 6 months. Can you please, we will go into a lot further detail later on, just let us know about the event that you have put on. Successful, and what date it was, and what it sort of as a top line, what it involved.
So we've had a tough year. So our first event of the year is at Bateman's Bay, and that property got burnt out on New Year's Eve. So that was a real tough one. And our landowner down there that we've worked with for 10 years, they lost their property. So that was a really bad start. We helped, being sort of helping them through that process of rebuilding, and then we were set up for a really great year. And then when the COVID stuff hit and the regulations came in, it basically put our events on ice. We'd already sold out one event. We were just about to run first weekend of April, and couldn't do that based on what was happening in the community and the COVID kind of environment. And we've basically just had to postpone all year. We've had some venues fall over, and then got to the point where it looked like our model would work, because we only have 500 to 600 participants. And we don't have spectators anyway. We've never encouraged spectators to come to the event. It's all about the rider. And if they want to bring their family or bring a maid or a mechanic, that's fine. But we don't open it up to spectators anyway. So that our model kind of really fit within the guidelines that the government put forward in terms of having 500 people on site and having a COVID safe plan and all this kind of stuff. So we just went back to the drawing board and enlisted the help of some people who are real experts in occupational health and safety. Richard Stevenson has worked with us really closely in developing those plans. So he's got a great head for that occupational health and safety space, and got our legal guys involved and just really went back to the drawing board and said, okay, if we were to run an event in this environment, what do we need to be compliant, and what do we need to make sure, what do we need to do to make sure we're not putting ourselves, our participants and our business at risk. And once we, honestly, it probably took 3 months to develop all of those plans, to have them then checked, double checked, put through legal, and to the point, I think there was a day where, we all kind of felt really happy with it and felt comfortable with it. And then, we had our...
It goes down the line, right? Because you can put all of these plans together, but making sure that then it gets to every single level of the event so that down to participants, everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, getting the buy-in from stakeholders, like you guys know, like Motorcycling Australia had to sign off. Motorcycling New South Wales had to sign off because we can't run an event unless they give us the green light, and then we can't run an event unless the council gives us the green light, and then all of our other police and stakeholders. But we ran an event, so we did run one. We've done one event this year, so we're doing better than most. Unfortunately, it was short-lived because they changed all the rules again the week later, and now we can't do shit. So
we have had the same.
But we did one, and it went really well. So we had 400 riders up at Nabiac, in June, and it was a really successful event. All of our COVID stuff went really well. We temperature checked everyone. All of our participants absolutely knew how critical it was to follow the guidelines that were set forward. They worked, they were champions in coming, and things couldn't be what they were. Like, we can't have the big sign-ons that we normally have and everyone getting together for beers and around campfires and all that stuff that makes our event so fun. Like, kind of had to be parked, and we just made a real effort to make it about the riding, and it worked. Although the week of the event we had about 100 mil of rain, so it almost got cancelled anyway. But we got away with it. It was great. It went well. Everyone was happy. Look, I don't think there wasn't any COVID cases.
I feel like you'll find a way, mate. Throw the roadblock down, you'll find a way.
Yeah. So it was good. Like, it was great. Like, and we had the full support of all the right people, And the good thing, the best thing, is that every single one of our partners, like our supporting sponsors, absolutely stayed on board. We didn't lose one, and they all understood
really are key to our whole industry.
Yeah.
And I'm going to. I want to come back to you so that we can learn more about how you overcame some of those.
Sounds good.
But Andrew, could you just
milk it, Hayley? No one wants to listen to me. Go for it, Simon.
Could you just tell everyone about your organisation and your position, and then we can sort of start merging this and hearing about everyone's learnings.
Sure. Position: jack of all trades, master at none. The company, I'll come back to that part of it. The company EPS, headquartered out of Germany, fairly humble beginnings about 30 years ago in Germany, and servicing the major events market, so festivals, touring music, physical infrastructure, really unsexy stuff, crowd control barriers, ground protection, temporary roadways.
Very necessary, mate. Very necessary.
Well, very necessary, but yeah, you've got to explain it to the layman sometimes, that it's really not all the sex and rock and roll that everyone thinks it might be. But look, the company, to quote the company owner, independent, the company's privately owned. For a lot of years it was a runaway freight train, and providing that service to our customers grew quite rapidly. So we've got, I think it's about 23 offices around the world now, with most continents covered. Africa we have covered, but interestingly enough, that's out of our military division. So we have a military and a construction division, another story, but a bit of diversification there. So little old me down here, managing director, Asia Pacific, left V8 Supercars in 2012. I was lucky enough to go through a time there where in the noughties it was just unbelievable growth and doing some amazing things. My resignation speech was easy. I said, guys, I told you I'd give you 2 years. I've been here 8. That's 4 times your return on investment. I'm out. And I took the challenge of being given the reins here. So a much smaller company by comparison. Still doing the same kind of stuff, infrastructure, consultancy into the major promoters, touring artist festivals, which were a thing back then. You had Big Day Out still running, Stereosonic, Soundwave, etc. They've since died, but we'll be making a resurrection soon, no doubt. It was a pretty exciting challenge. A lot of people turned around to me and said, why did you go from the promoter side of the fence to the contractor side of the fence? And I don't really care about status in that regard. I mean, the comment I made at that point in time is you're always servicing someone. Doesn't matter which side of the fence that you're on. So as I really got into it, and I'm not going to lie to you, the first year to 2 years with business over here was quite hellish. We really had to get in there and sort of understand who we were and what we did. I make it sound fairly straight.
That is the beginning of this year, because I also want to get into you actually having
the
story we'll get in the hospital.
Well, we'll get to that. That's fine. But so rounding off the actual company and starting with the company here, we had to get in and really sort of had to get in and pull it apart and start again with a lot of things. But one of the interesting distinctions that I made early in the business is that we make a lot of our money out of our infrastructure, but our value is actually in our consultancy. And people hear the word consultants, and all of a sudden they hear ching, 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 ching. It's going to cost a lot of money. So it's a bit of a reverse. I won't go too much into the model in case there's competitors out there listening, but it's a bit of a reverse kind of model where we have a hand in just about every major tour, in not just about every single major tour that comes through here. We've got the IP to about 200 venues that we've created over time, and a long and established team here. And we often get phone calls from promoters and event managers and say, what do you know about this venue, or can you look at that venue, or we want to go here, can you do an audit for us? So we get involved in some of those tours 12 and 18 months in advance, and before they've even reached public. We'll peak for a while, then drop off until the event, and come back and actually start putting shit on the ground.
Can you tell us about the involvement, so how your involvement came about with the NRL event, and what it was you did to help kickstart?
This is where I go into the team mentality of, it's a we collective. I'd love to take some credit for this, but our team sort of noting that it was right up the road from us here up on the sunny Gold Coast, and they'd had some of the issues. As I said, we'd actually done a bit of work at that venue, trying to help them out with some overlays and putting concerts in. We did the Elton John tour earlier this year, so we'd done a lot of stuff working on the field of play. And when we saw it blow up, one of our team members actually made contact, got in touch. Funnily enough, went up there, I think it was on the Monday morning, and there was still about 20 national media that were kicking around the stadium and, trying to get some kind of grab or some kind of story to say how the NRL was going down and, the games are off and it's, Armageddon. But, we waited for them to slowly disappear, or our team did. I wasn't there. Worked with a handful of the authorities and the venue, and threw some ideas out, came up with some COVID-safe CAD planning, which includes social distancing and actually physically putting bums in seats rather than, saying, okay, we've got a greenfield site, max capacity at 4 square metres is X, we'll just let them all go, because we're human beings, we want interaction. Telling someone to, as I prefer to call it, anti-social distance just doesn't work. So, we got that across the line. They signed off on it, and the only reason we know it was a success is it didn't get a mention the next week in the news. So, and the games are still going. So, look, it was, I'm not going to say it was a pivot. I talked about this in our pre-brief. Hate buzzwords. We looked at some of the things that we've got and basically looked to where we could add value and service, and it's grown with us from there. It's not, we're not going to retire on these jobs, but mate, right now it's day to day and it's week to week, and any shot of money is like a shot in the arm.
You got to reinvent a way of thinking that hadn't traditionally been done, and brought in work.
Yeah, and I think you touched on at the start, Hayley, about some of these new things that are going to start happening, and Simon, you talked about the week after your event, all of a sudden the rules changed and it's out the window. There's going to be a lot of waste paper baskets that are full of draft plans at the moment because there's no precedent. It's an evolving beast. One thing I actually do know, and it's one of the memes I saw very early in the piece about COVID, was give it to the event people to sort out. If you can run a festival with 30,000 people with a walkie-talkie and some cable ties, we can knock this shit over pretty quick too. We're a resourceful bunch of people, and we'll get in and get it done, I'm sure. Not the COVID part of it, but we have to reinvent ourselves. And
maybe you can fix COVID with cable ties and gaff, mate. Maybe that's the thing.
Mate, if you had a cable tied me here back in Australia and I didn't make my fateful trip to London back in March, maybe I wouldn't have got COVID at all myself. So,
right. Could you please just tell us briefly about that? Tell us the story.
There's your segue, Hayley. There's your segue.
And yeah, like what happened in hospital and how that went down.
Almost 6 months ago this week. Time flies when you're not having fun. International Live Music Conference every March, held in London. Huge conference. We have an EPS directors meeting off the back of that. I'm not going to lie to you. My mother, before I left, was into me talking about COVID. Shouldn't be going, and it wasn't an issue here at that point in time. Some of our other international directors opted out. Our Italian director, in particular, that's right when Italy was going crazy. Anyway, I went. We had business. Was there for the week. Came home. Landed on the Monday. Hey,
watch the DMAs.
Yeah, I watched the DMAs. As a matter of fact, watching how they manage their crowds inside the O2 at Brixton. Yeah, mate, that may well be where I picked it up. I don't know yet, but look, the trip back landed on Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday. ASIC auditors in here, bunch of work, suffering a bit of jet lag, so I sort of managed myself as best as I could. Came in Thursday morning, had a free run, broke out in the sweats. As a matter of fact, that day was the first day they'd started doing pop-up testing at Robina Hospital here, and I got two small sweaty outbreaks, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to walk straight out the door, not going to say a word, don't want to create alarm, safe than sorry. I ticked the 4 boxes. It was all very new. Even when they tested me there, they had people sitting over the top of the nurses' shoulders because they didn't even know what they were doing. You could have knocked me over with a feather when they rang and said, you've got it. I'm a bit, I've got some opinions on COVID and the way they've handled it, only because they said we'd call you on Friday if you've got it. We'll call you on Monday if you don't. They called me Saturday lunchtime at 12 o'clock. I was in the home office. At 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon was my fiance's 40th birthday. So we actually had the family, the party was the next week. The family get together was that night with parents and grandparents and that kind of stuff. And as a positive person, not a positive in the negative, how does Donald Trump say that? Corona positive person. That could have been catastrophic. If that call came 4 hours later, we could have been stuffed. So 5 days in hospital.
You were in hospital, and your business at the time. So I mean, at that time, everything started getting shut down.
When I got that phone call, there was the head of infectious diseases said, "Mate, get your shit together and get here now. Don't pass go. Don't get your $200. Get here now." And I looked around. I packed an overnight bag, being an events person and always travelling. It was right there. 4 sets of clothes, 4 sets of jocks, and a laptop, because I figured I'd be stuck there for a while. And within that few days, we were running in consultation with head office in Germany a number of forecasts and cash flows, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months at that point in time, budgets and cash flows on, well, hang on a second, with these hits, and we have to go that far, what's it going to look like?
Yeah, and at that point, I think we were all in the same boat, doing cash flow forecasts for 3 to 6 to 9 months. And then, I mean, obviously, you were really ill as well, and you were in hospital, so you don't ideally want to be doing that. But generally, as a person that works in events, you just keep going.
Yeah. What's crazy about that statement, sorry, Hayley, too, is that I wasn't ill. It was bizarre. The doctor said to me at one point, he said, Andrew, I've got a 6-year-old in the room next door who's on full battery. got you here with mild symptoms and a 60-year-old up the hallway on a respirator. And I've said this to a lot of people. The worst physical effects I had from the whole thing was sitting in the hospital and thinking about the restructure and the difficult conversations that we had to be had. We knew at that point in time that this isn't sustainable. Staff are going to go. The anxiety that goes with that. We're a pretty passionate bunch of people, and we wear our heart in our sleeves. And, I've got to give a lot of credit to my staff because, they weren't great conversations, but a lot of them just took it on the chin, and that wreaked havoc with me and my physical and mental health more than the virus.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. And then obviously you get out, and the realities are that it's actually longer than what you're forecasting for, right?
I had 24 hours actually before they started shutting things down. I remember sitting at Edgewater, one of the restaurants here, because I'd just been in not just isolation in the hospital, but another 2 weeks. So we had a 3-week head start on quarantine and had the police at that point in time, when they had resources, checking on us to make sure we were staying at home. So when I returned my negative test, I had 24 hours. I had a couple of beers, and we had some further conversations with head office in Germany. And by that point in time, a few weeks later, we'd revised the forecast to September 2021 before we really thought we were going to get a pulse. And that I'll speak honestly, scared the shit out of me. It really did.
Yeah, well, it's probably something that we touched on probably almost in our first episode here, and economists talking about the L-shaped recession having that massive drop, and then having a shock phase and recovery phase, and this blowing on for another 18 months till to September 21, which is exactly what you're saying. And
then we'll have a
boom, 10-year. Then it's a 10-year boom. So get ready.
Well, I mean, again, you look at times of depression, usually off the back of war, GFC, etc. The boom industries, events, alcohol, gambling. People need some kind of relief from their boredom. Just so happens that in this instance, we're going to be the last ones to come back. But we've got a pretty resilient plan to make it there, and all going well, we don't have too many casualties in the meantime. That when that hits, I think it will come at a rate of knots. And that's where you want to sit there and say there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and I think that's why we wanted to do this one today, is to kind of show hope too, right? We are on a long road, but there are some events that can happen. There are still some that are a long, long way off from being able to happen, but the ones that can reinvent themselves have done. I'm just going to go over to CT now, because we also put on an event at the weekend that I'll let CT.
I'll keep it short, just so we can keep moving along. But yeah, we ran the first bloody long walk for the season. For those who don't know, Bloody Long Walk is a 35-kilometre charity walk event. Started in 2013 as a ways to do fundraising for the Mitochondrial Disease Foundation, and we've been with them right from the get-go, and have grown it as an asset over the last 7 years. This year we're supposed to run 11 events around Australia, and be able to have an opportunity to raise amazing funds for the charity. And then COVID, same as everyone obviously, and so that wreaked havoc. We were due to start our first event in May. We'd been working on the series since August last year, and the last 5 months have probably been just like everyone. We've been battling through COVID just like everyone, and we've been up until last weekend's event. We had changed this event from May to September. We had clashes with Ironman for a date. We then had to come back to August. We've in the end had 1,040 registrants, which is great. It's not nowhere near what their target would have been, but with some creative modelling and creative financial modelling, we're able to make that financially viable for them, and go out and run the event safely. Then I guess coming up to that, then the Queensland borders closed for us. So we were due to be going up there to run this event. Hayley's run 47 of these events in the last 7 years, I think we worked out. And, you know, so that was a big adjustment for us. And so we had to continue to... So,
but you've been there, so that wasn't a problem.
100%. And so for us, you know, that was another thing we had to now jump through. Okay, so we beefed up our Queensland team. We're heavily, you know, putting together more documents and, you know, making our processes systematic, and making sure that this team who some have been working on the event and some haven't worked on the event are going to understand what it is and be able to put it together. Not only that, with all of the COVID measures in place, and make sure that everything was run safely. I guess in that meantime, we also lost four more events got cancelled for us. So, you know, we're talking about over this time, this amount of ups and downs and having to reinvent things and get yourself back up and keep going. And, you know, for us, I mean, just looking at that event last weekend, we had to change to, instead of large group waves going out, we had to change to arrival times. You know, people coming through, social distancing, doing a non-contact scanning, grab their bib and go straight through the arch and be gone onto the course. No group, you know, grouping up in any kind of way. Masks for staff, you know, MC messaging that's making sure that everyone's understanding what's going on, COVID signage, no cut fruit, no single-use cups, COVID marshals at every touch point, hand sanitizer, you know, seating, you know, hand sanitizer when you're about to touch a tap to get some water, hand sanitizer after you've done it, hand sanitizer when you go into the toilet, hand sanitizer when you're left. And then when they finally...
MacGyvering cable tying.
A lot of MacGyvering cable tying, which, you know, doesn't surprise anyone in this room. And, you know, and when they finally made their way through 35 Ks and made it to the finish, we then asked them to move on as soon as possible. So through the MC messaging, and thanks, well done with your 35 Ks. And if you could just take a quick breath, you're going to have to keep moving. So
can I just ask Simon, I can see Simon sort of moving around. You would have had to do a lot of reinventing of your event. What was like the key points that you had to like reinvent, or did you find it not such a major issue because you were out in regional?
No, look, we there's a couple of positives in being outdoors, but we had to completely reinvent our sign-on process. So we had to, you know, normally everyone gets to the event, we put them into their camping areas, they come over to the, you know, event village, grab a couple of beers, you know, and then you got 500 people hanging out, catching up with each other, checking out all the, you know, industry stalls and whatnot, doing their sign-on, their bike scrutineering. It's a really social environment, you know, and that's what we had to try and change. And we created a whole new pre-event digital sign-on process. So we actually had to take a lot of the antiquated systems that Motorcycling Australia or our governing bodies had and digitize them and, you know, and put them online. And we're using a smart waiver process, creating, you know, pre-event digital assets, which serves as rider briefings and stuff like this. So once they got to the event, they stay in their car, they're processed in their car. And our whole messaging was just stay with your crew, you know. So they basically ride in teams of 2 to 4. So I just said, the people that you come with, just stay with them. So once you get to the event, stay in your campsite. You know, you allocated enough space. We had all of our spacing guidelines and stuff, you know, ironed out, and just tried to tell people just to stick with your crew. And I mean, the other good thing for us, when you're riding a motorbike, you've got goggles and a helmet, and it's an individual sport, so it's pretty unlikely that you're going to have a chance to cough on someone or, you know, or come into close contact with someone when you're actually participating. But yeah, we got rid of all post-event presentations and all of that stuff, and you know, sent people on their merry way after the race. And a lot of the stuff that we created will stick. You know, like we actually improved processes to the point we were like, why didn't we just do it like that before?
I was going to ask that actually. Is it like
way better
with some new ideas and gone, that's a way better way to do this?
A way better way to do it. Way better way. Save time on sign on and all that stuff. Yeah, like, there's definitely the social element sucks. You know, when you're running events, our guys, all they want to do is come and drink beer with their mates. That's the reason they're there, So to take that away from it, was really, really difficult,
Any issues with communication? So your background's in communication.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Actually, being able to get the message across and clearly enough so that people actually listened to you, and so when they came into they stayed with their mates.
Yeah. Look, we're lucky we have the media channel, right? So we can communicate in a number of different ways. What we did find is that text message was definitely the most efficient way. You look at the open rates on EDMs and stuff like that, and 99% of people will read a text message. So we actually integrated text messaging a lot more for this event, and we will in the future. And then we're really lucky in that the community of riders that come to these events, they're the tribe. They basically toe the line. If you ask them to do something, they're generally going to do it. Like, we haven't had rubbish bins on our events for 3 years now, because the people that come to our events are completely educated that if they ever want to come back to that they got to take every single zip tie home with them and put it in their bins at home. So we don't even have rubbish bins anymore. And if you cross the line on that and you leave a messy pit, you'll never come to another event again. And people are aware with that. They know that we're lucky to be doing this stuff. And they really took all that stuff on. I mean, we temperature checked every single person that came through the gate. We locked the gate, everyone that went in or out, if you weren't on a list, you weren't coming into the venue. So no spectators, nothing. And, our contact tracing stuff was really compliant in that regard. And, I think revenue-wise, it's definitely, nowhere near what it has been in the past. But it's enough, like what Andrew was saying, man, you take it. It's enough to tick along, So, if you can get to break even in this environment, then you're doing a great job. So, frustrating in that we had a model that we were comfortable with from a compliance standpoint, from a risk standpoint. Then there's been some changes in community sport, and, we're kind of weighing up now, okay, how can we shift the model to fit into that? Which councils want people to come to their areas and which councils don't want people to come to their areas, and, and just kind of roll with the punches. But, we're also getting to the end of the season. November's too hot for us to run events. So we'll probably, hopefully get a couple more away if things go our way. But if not, it's just going to be a park it and see till 2021, and maybe look at some channels in our business that can drive some revenue, away from events, and try and scale some things in different areas. But it's really challenging. I think, without the government support stuff that's come down the line, we'd all be out of jobs for sure. It's helped cushion the payroll and make things a little bit easier. But I'm generally concerned what it looks like in the next 12 months for sure. I think it'll be much smaller, much more localized stuff and experiences. And
something really positive though is that the public health has a lot more knowledge now around events and what is possible. And I think the more events that are taking place like yours, they're getting more and more information from that of what's safe and what's not. So as CT said, one of our events, the Bloodlong Walk that went ahead, we had 15-minute waves. Now we are proposing to Adelaide to have 10-minute waves, because literally there was no one on site.
Yeah.
It was when I say waves, arrival times.
Yeah.
It was so spread out that we were having maybe 30 people in a whole field at one time. So, I think
I was just going to touch on too. You said, but you were talking about the reinvention and also behaviour change, and then some of those things that you're going to hang on to, and they're going to probably make your events better. And I think that's really interesting that everyone started to look at things differently and also change habits. And some of those habits are really bad habits. Talk about ways that are going to help environment, help with costs, and helps with all sorts of other things that people just wanted before, and they wouldn't change. And now that everyone's prepared to change, and it's changed fast. So
what I really don't like is, and Andrew, you said it so well before, is this anti-social distancing thing. That's what events are about. It's about getting together, and when you're heading to somewhere like, and lucky for us, like before getting together, it's about riding your motorbike. And if we can just create a really epic experience for that person to actually go out and ride their motorbike, then that social stuff is somewhat and can remain secondary. Because like music festivals or food and wine stuff, where it is really about getting together to socialize, I think is a little bit more challenging. But when it comes to sport, if you can put on a great track, they're going to go away with a smile on their face regardless if they only got to hang out with one guy for the weekend and they had to stay in their little camping box and that was it. They still got to ride their bike and have a good time. And the demand is there. So we know.
I'm happy to do a wine festival. I'm happy to do a wine festival and just sit there and drink wine on my own if that's what we want to go into. If that's our pivot, we're fine.
Same. I'll be socially distanced on that one too.
Yeah, we'll wave at each other.
Yeah.
Andrew, you were in a slightly different position, that it wasn't you necessarily that was the promoter of the event, but how did you communicate as a supplier that you'd been part of, reinventing part of the industry so it could happen?
We had at the start of it quite a very succinct communications plan. But this is when, everything really started going haywire and there were some pretty savage twists and turns and big decisions that needed to be made. It's far more informal now because it has scaled right back. The communication that we've actually had, one of the beautiful things that I've seen come out of it, and I'm probably taking this at a little bit of a tangent, but I'll come back to the question. One of the beautiful things that I've seen come out of it, particularly on that communication line, is we live, breathe, eat, work in an industry that's high stress, high pressure. These things happen, on the day, at the time, no matter what. And there's a lot of people out there that suffer burnout as a result of it. There's anxiety issues that go with it. They talk about drug dependency, suicide, all these things in the events business being pretty catastrophic. It's no longer taboo all of a sudden. 12 months ago, there were "Are you okay?" plans or campaigns. It's not foreign to pick up the phone and talk to someone like, "Hey, how are you?" We became so used to talking to our customers and our suppliers, even our suppliers, in certain ways. The communication that we've actually come out with now, sort of bringing it back to your question, the communications plan now is really just about honesty and integrity. Again, I'm still having conversations with my staff in here because we had to cut to a level that we didn't know where it was going to be, and if we had to ramp back up, then we had to be ready to go. But the reality of it is, we might need to cut even further again. I'm not safe. This could affect me somewhere around the corner as well. So, the communication about where the business is going, the communication with the customers and the people that we've had out there and suppliers, which are just phone calls and ringing up and saying, "Hey, how are you? Is there anything we can do? We've seen this, we've seen that." In some instances, the personal side of it has really sort of come through. I think some of the stuff that the bigger players and the promoters out there that are actually doing in conjunction with national sporting organisations is an amazing sign of how event management people tend to work. You've actually got competitors out there who are now working with each other to try and resurrect the industry. So, there's a lot to be gained from that. So communication wise for us, there's no running, there's no hiding, there's no shuffling deck chairs and bits and pieces here. You just got to play it down the line with a straight bat because everyone's in survival mode at the moment.
So that was, I suppose, communication from. I don't actually know if I included you in that CT. Sorry, in communication on a few different levels. Sorry. Do you want to explain how?
We can talk about communication.
Me or CT? Did I just give you 5 minutes of babble? Did I?
We can talk about communication around the bloody long walk if you want.
Yeah, I just think it might be quite
just to touch on the event
to understand from what Simon was saying. Having that pre-communication when you've got and social and behavioural change, I think.
Yeah, I think like for us, if we broke it down to pre-event and on-event and post-event, pre-event for us, it was really important for us to come together as a team and also with our PR team and make sure that we were really clear on our crisis comms plans. And obviously this is a massive change and a lot of changes that go with that. And, we're going into it in our minds, the first mass participation event in Australia, and we need to make sure that what could potentially come out of this that we need to keep an eye on to make sure that those things are covered. Going into the pre-event, we're making sure we had video, describers or explainers. We needed people to feel to instill the confidence in the event. Need to communicate the COVID safe measures. What that meant and how it worked, and what was required of them as a partner, in the participants. The arrival times, we talked about the changes that people might have been used to, but coming in for waves before. This is how it now works, and we have to follow these things because we've got to make sure that this is done right. Because if we don't do it right, then it could affect other people. It could affect this event. On event MC messaging was massive for us to communicate the changes and how they worked and what was necessary for them. For us, our tone of voice is always important because it's a fun event. We want to have fun still, not trying to scare people. Just want to make sure everyone was safe. And an example of that might have been, instead of our COVID marshals, we had, bloody COVID marshal vests made up kind of thing. So there's that sort of tongue-in-cheek tone of voice is still coming through. So we're still trying to get the message, but keep it fun and still want people to enjoy the event. Signage out on course to reinforce, and obviously around the finishing with MCs and things like that. And then post-event, making sure that nothing's going out that, shows can sometimes be taken from an angle that make them look more grouped than they really are. And so we did have to
really aware of, right?
We did have to be really particular about that, just to be sure that nothing was, is going to come back and bite anyone, even if we were 100% sure that everything had been done right, And so I guess that covers I think it was really important to get ahead of it.
Yeah. And I'm just going to add to that, just with the photography thing. The reason that we were so worried about that was because it wasn't that we thought that there wouldn't be social distancing, but we've all gone to a concert, and depending on the angle that you do, or lift up to the front of the person's head, it can look busier than what it actually is. You can put it on an angle and it looks busy, and so
normally you're trying to do the opposite, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, it's really busy, and
3,000 people here.
So
but, we couldn't get shut down there and then not be able to run at other events or put other events in jeopardy outside of ours.
I'm going to finish the panelcast on a really positive note. I would just like to hear from you all of any other examples you've seen of excellent innovation in event marketing that could be, used in the future, or changes that you see happening that might change our industry for a positive.
I've got one. I think the guys at Surfing New South Wales did a really good job to very quickly. They're sharp over there. Very quickly they got up like a digital competition thing, which basically allowed young surfers to film themselves at their local beach, submit the films online, and be judged against other kids doing the same thing. So they transitioned what would have been naturally a group surfing competition into a very individual thing, put it on a digital platform, and still gave people the opportunity to compete against each other, which I thought was fantastic. I think that, and this was like 2 weeks after the COVID thing hit.
Yeah,
those guys were
had them on. So we
were
had
lucky enough to have them on. Yeah, they were great.
Chris Friend and
Luke.
Phil Macker.
And Luke Macker.
That was brilliant. I thought, like, in a competitive space, to get something up in the digital that quickly was
so fast.
Doesn't work for us because the guys can't film themselves just brapping around on a motorbike on the weekend. But
you know what? It just shows that has then the opportunity that's kept their community engaged, so that when you go to live, they've actually got a feeder now.
Yeah,
so very, very clever. And yeah, absolutely, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think I was going to touch on is we've seen obviously virtual events that are fundraisers, but we've also seen some timing apps that have come through where people can actually truly see virtually where themselves compared to other participants. And so it's not so much of a, well, just go out and do whenever you want and log some kilometres and, raise some funds. Is actually coming through that way. And also around the Tour de France, when they had to be postponed, because it was Zwift, I think, if I'm saying it right, they had it set up so they were doing the races from their homes or wherever they were, racing against each other, and people could watch it on TV. So, they were actually riding, but not on the road. There's amazing stuff that has happened.
And yourself, Andrew?
You're on silent. You're mute.
Come back. Let me see if I can.
There he is. Gotcha.
You got me? I don't know why it's doing that. I've purposely got my arms folded so that doesn't happen. So hell knows what's going on. Look, I'm the first person to admit that marketing is not my strong point. Sleeves up and walking around with a P&L in my hand is probably my biggest strength. But I have to say, what I saw, and this has probably been biased to my old employer, what I saw V8 Supercars do with their esports so quickly was amazing. I don't know why it hasn't continued. Maybe it hasn't. I just haven't seen it. But not just the fact that they actually got the competition up as quick as they did, but the crossover. I mean, they had Max Verstappen.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
The athletes was insane.
But
then they had guys like Carl Cox, in there as well. DJ's going in there and going up against it as well. And, I think the ability, particularly with the surge in esports going on now as well, but the way that they could actually integrate not just your professional athletes, but, there's probably no reason you couldn't run a promotion and get Joe Blow from down the road in to do something like that as well. Sure as hell there's got to be something sitting in the marketing desk there going, right, we're going to come back on that when we get back up and go again. I thought that was second to none.
And that's an opportunity for them again, right? Because it's not necessarily that they're going to take market share from many. They'll still have their community when they go back to live events, but now they've got an opportunity to grab some extra market share there or share the market share, I should say.
And motorsport's traditionally been to drive down to the racetrack, perch up, grab a few cans and enjoy the weekend. To take that into a digital space, which seems to be, where everything goes, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it worked well for the time, for sure. Yeah.
100%.
True. 100%.
That actually brings us to the hour, guys. Thank you so much. That was a really lovely chat. And I'm sorry if I had to, I was just trying to manage time a bit. So I hope everyone enjoyed that. We did have a question in from an anonymous attendee. If you can just send me an email, hayley.mason@the-shift.agency, I will send it around to our panelists and get them to reply to you. Because we've just probably run out of time for a bit. Thank you so much. If you can join our Facebook page, The-Shift.Agency. This panelcast will also be on our website. It will also be on iTunes as a podcast, so feel free to download. Our next episode's actually not going to be a normal episode. It won't be episode 11. It will be a special edition. And we're going to just talk a bit more about growth marketing assets. We touched on it a bit with Simon, but if anyone is interested, please feel free to sign up to our panelcast, which is also on our website, The-Shift.Agency. And thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Really enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.
When all is said and done, what will you say? That you conquered the dizzying heights or got dizzy? Will you say that you stood with your brothers and sisters or found family along the way? When all is said and done, what will you say? That you told your own story or helped others live theirs? Will you say that you uncovered long-lost secrets or discovered a secret way to get lost? When all is said and done, what will you say? That you connected people with ideas and objects? Or that you brought ideas and objects to the people? Will you say that you shifted expectations? Or the ground shifted beneath your feet? When all is said and done, What will you say?